I got him. Oh, big red, Bubba. Big old red. I seen that bait up there, threw it that bait, and now I know what was chasing the bait. 26, 27-inch redfish. He came up and plopped it.
What's going on, Salt Strong Nation? It's Matt in the Yak, and I'm back with another tip for you guys. Now, this is going to be a good one. This is something none of us can get enough of. All of us are looking for more topwater action. We all love a good solid topwater blow up. Nothing like seeing that explosion on the surface of the water and seeing that bait just go disappearing and that line just go to screaming. But one thing that I really do want to tell you guys about and kind of talk about in this video, you know, as we get into the seasonal transition now and we start getting these storms, one thing we get a lot now as we start moving into, you know, almost storm season here, we get a lot of windy days, we get a lot of rain, and sometimes we get some tough conditions. But what people don't understand, or a lot of times really just overlook, is that sometimes those can be some of your absolute best topwater conditions. So when we often get these high water levels, these storms, overcast days, throwing a topwater can be a great option. But one thing you guys know, I love these Moonwalker topwater lures that we have here at Salt Strong. But I will say that there are times, certain situations, where a different topwater may have an advantage over, say, a Moonwalker or a Zara Spook, or even a Chug and Plug, one of those type of topwaters. And that really just often comes down to situational circumstance. There isn't any one works all conditions. Now, there are lures that are more consistent and that will work in more conditions than most, but there is not an end-all be-all, especially for topwater situations. But with these windy days and these rainy conditions and just some of these maybe less than perfect conditions we may think of for topwater, one of my favorite back pocket lures is throwing a Rapala or Rapala skitter walk. Now, if you guys have been following along with our videos for a while, you guys have seen that my main man, Justin Ritchie, our head of tackle, has done a killer video on these skitter walks. But these are actually one of my favorite summertime topwaters. And this one that I'm holding right here, I'll actually hold it up so you guys can see. That is actually going to be my favorite, my confidence color, and that's the holographic silver. Now, that's not to tell you guys that I don't use anything other than this. You guys can see as the light reflects on it, it does have a little bit of that holographic flash that those bait fish often have. But if you just look at it from a normal perspective, it may just look white or bone colored, and even on the bottom it's going to be the same. But you guys can see there around the side of the gills, it's got that color right there, that red color. That's one thing that I really like about this bait. But again, that's not to say that I haven't tested a lot of different colors. This orange belly, gold side, black top, huge favorite of mine in stained color water. This, the yellow body, all-time favorite right here. The orange right there on the head. And just as I mentioned a minute ago, my main man Justin Ritchie did a review on these skitter walks in times past, and this is actually his confidence color. This right here is the baby trout color, and I'll tell you that this was mine for a very long time until I stumbled upon this holographic silver that I just told you guys about. And there's a very specific reason for that. If you guys look at this this baby trout color that Justin's a huge fan of, you see it has those nice dots right there, and it does look like a speckled trout. But if you compare it to this one has a bit of a more natural look, especially with that holographic look. But it also, if you were to merge, say, this and a mullet look, I feel like this is what you would get. And it also, with that holographic body, does a great job of resembling both bait fish presentations. So it can look like a trout, like this one can, really natural with that white belly, but it can also look like pinfish or those other bait fish, greenies even, that often have those really holographic sides when the sun hits it. So whether you're in sunny conditions or you're in cloudy conditions, I feel like that color right there works best for me. Now again, that's going to be all about preference, but we'll talk about those preferences and those subtle differences in just a second. So as again, I've said, I've tried out a lot of different colors. These aren't the only options that I've tried. These are just the options that I had on hand right here next to my desk. So that could give you some idea or perspective as to how many I may actually have in my tackle box with me when I'm on the water. Now, as you guys would be able to see in the review Justin did, there are actually different sizes of those Rapala skitter walks. They do have the 08 as well as the 11 size. Now the 11 is about 4 inches. This one right here is about 3 1/8, just around that measurement. But not just the size difference is what you're going to find in a difference here between these two. There's actually a difference in the frequency of rattle. This one will have a higher frequency, a little bit higher pitch, a higher tone than the larger size will. That brass bearing on the inside, being that there is a larger cavity in the larger size bait, it will just put off naturally a different sound or a different frequency rattle than it would with a smaller cavity. Now, just so you guys can try and hear these, I'm going to hold these up to the mic for you so you can try and tell the difference between the two. This is the larger, and this will be the smaller. Now, I know it may be a slight, subtle difference, but those differences do often matter. That lower frequency rattle will be able to be heard in choppier conditions. Now, we know that high-pitch rattle travels very well in calmer conditions. It'll travel further than the lower frequency, but the lower frequency rattle will do better in the windy or choppier conditions. Another good time to switch would be obviously when you see a different size of bait. If what you're seeing is a smaller profile bait in the area, maybe you're seeing a lot of those glass minnows on the surface, that 08 size would be really great. But if your main focus is in the summertime, like what we're talking about when there's big mullet, big pinfish out there, I do like to go to that 11. And again, in that holographic silver being my confidence bait, that's one of the ones that I'll always reach to first. Now again, I said I do like to use these in a little bit choppier water. Now these moonwalkers right here, they're really great for working a lot of area fast. They do a great job of gliding across the water very quickly. But these skitter walks, and that's because they sit very well on the top of the surface. They don't dig down into the water a little bit. They don't sit very low on the water surface. But with these skitter walks, they're a little bit heavier. And on the belly there, if you guys look right there, you can see that they have this wider belly right here, and it's almost flat down there on the bottom. It does taper off right there towards the back end, which really helps with casting distance. But that wide flat belly right there on bottom does a great job of keeping this bait down on the water surface. It doesn't really glide across the top. It sits in the water. So you actually effectively work an area a little bit slower. So one of the times that I like using that key factor, being able to work this bait slower, is when that sun comes up. One of my favorite things to do in the summer times is when the fishing gets tough and the bites are hard to come by, I'm starting to be struggling a little bit. What I'll do is I'll pull out a topwater lure and I'll start throwing it. Now with these brass rattles on the inside, that rattle just has a tendency to really annoy those fish. And if you can work this bait in an area for longer, not cover as much water as fast, like as you would with, say, the Moonwalker lure, then you're able to keep that bait in an area for a little bit longer. If you're able to keep that bait in an area long enough to annoy a fish, sometimes that can trigger an instinctual bite from any fish in that area. Now, just to mention a couple of my favorite places to use these skitter walks, it would be on grass flats and next to grass lines. Anywhere I can find a bait fish pod, or anywhere I can find some good current flow and work open bodies of water. Anywhere that I could use this as a search bait, it's just another really great option as well. Retrieval would be no different than any other topwater walk the dog style lure, but with that lower frequency rattle. In some of these summertime conditions, it can definitely help you trigger more strikes.
We're on. Good red. Oh goodness, y'all, we got a good one here. Y'all, this fish is a solid red fish right here. Nice one. Came out of that grass, smoked the skitter walk, crushed it, dude. Crushed that skitter walk. This red fish right here's got to be at least 30 inches. He's a unit. Fishing it right there on that grass line, man. Those fish, they're pushed in with this high tide right around that grass line, and this one crushed that skitter walk. Let's go.
Now, again, as I said, color option will really be up to you, whether you choose to go with the hollow silver, one of my confidence baits, or even the baby trout color, Justin Ritchie's confidence baits, or even if you're in some really dirty and muddy water and you want to go with either the gold and black and orange, or even the yellow chartreuse there, those are all great options. Color choice is all about confidence. If you can find a color choice that you build confidence on, I would say stick with that, and you may even find that there's a trend in your area with that certain color. Again, we all have our confidence baits because they've worked for us, and sometimes we need to pay attention as to why those baits work for us. And again, I can find a trend when working these skitter walks through the summer months, or even sometimes on into the fall when that bait is still large. It's just a great option to attract those fish in windy conditions, conditions where you have a lot of water to cover, or like for me in some situations when you're in a tournament and looking for that winning fish. Now, one thing I do want to say about these skitter walks, when you're throwing them, make sure you use a little bit stiffer rod. They are a little bit heavier than some of your other topwater lures. They are a bit heavier than our Moonwalker here. So when you go to throw one of these skitter walks, make sure you have a nice rod with some solid power to it. You just want to make sure you have a rod that's not going to have too much bend in it, because that could cause the rod to overload and just cause you problems with casting. But if you have a nice solid stiff rod that has a fast action tip, you will definitely be able to launch this thing. I've been using the Cashin Element Inshore Medium Heavy to throw this skitter walk as of recently with a Ballistic MQ. That's the 2500 because it's a little bit faster of a reel. So when I'm working that topwater lure, I can get that line in quickly. As you guys were able to see in some of that video content, those fish, after striking that lure, ran straight at me, and I needed to get line in quickly. That's one of the advantages of those high-speed reels. So when throwing these heavier topwater lures, you might want to beef up your rod selection a little bit. Our Salt Strong Slot Machine custom rod would definitely be able to handle these skitter walks, no problem. But if you're looking to customize something specifically for a heavy topwater rod, those Cashin Medium Heavy Element Inshores are just definitely great rods to pair for that as well. So if you guys have any questions for me about the skitter walk, the way I pair it, the way I use it, or any of the conditions I like to use it in, make sure you leave those questions for me down in the comment section, and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you guys want to pick up the skitter walk, whether it be Justin's favorite color and his confidence bait, baby trout, or it be mine, the holographic silver, or any other option we have in our tackle shop, you can do that at fishstrong.com. Keep in mind, our insider members do actually get exclusive discounts on all of their tackle in our tackle store. So if you're interested in not just being able to learn more about becoming a better fisherman and get more fishing tips just like this, but also get exclusive discounts on your fishing tackle to help you save time and money when you're on the water, definitely check us out at saltstrong.com. And until next time, we'll see you in the next video.